There's a quote I love, and it is, "Our greatest work is that which we wish had been offered to us when we were in our deepest pain." So Jim, lots of kids would come to the ballpark with disabilities, I think identifying with you in many ways and connecting with you at a deep level, thinking that that would help them move through their situation. Any one story stick out in your mind that you recall?
It would be hard to nail one story down. Other than to say, it was a different time, it was a different, era. And I never knew how many kids were like me, to be honest. I had no clue about that. And, as I played in college and, I was the human interest story of the week for a while there. I went to, was on all the shows, and a lot of columnists came and wrote these flowery pieces. It still didn't prepare me really for being in the major leagues and the attention. And what's beautiful about it is how many people watch these games and connect with these games around the country in places that have nothing to do with the team you're playing for. Sure. And so every town we went to, there became a family or two or three who would show up in Oakland or Baltimore or Texas or New York, Boston, didn't matter. And so, those meetings that we had and seeing a little boy or a little girl, it really brought back a flood of emotions, both good and bad, because I use sports to fit in. I was born differently, and sports called to me to be in a locker room, to be a part of something, to be with my team, right? That gave me great satisfaction and fulfillment. And those meetings in some ways drew me away from that. I would be with my team playing cards or, listen to music, and they'd say, well, there's somebody down by the dugout who'd like to meet you, or outside the clubhouse. And I'd always go, and I always, never walked away uninspired or, completely fulfilled in a different way. But there was a mixture of emotions there. It was like, what is this about? What's the power of playing, and what's the purpose? And, is it just being as good as you possibly can be, or can you try to inspire people? So I was lucky to be in that position, and like I said, not quite prepared for it either. I didn't know how prevalent and often those meetings would be.
When you were growing up, your parents would tell you that you were special. As a kid, did you believe it?
That's a great question. I'm not sure, Jack. My parents told me I was special, or made me believe that in maybe not the way you might think. I think their message to me, my dad used to always say to me, what's been taken away once will be given back twice, which I think is the same thing as saying you're special. Like, right. More has been given to you than was taken away. Right. And he really believed that, and I think what he was trying to say, and my mom would try to say, was that I was up to the challenge of growing up differently, of having to do things differently, of being born with one hand. So they made me feel as though I was up to that. If that's being special, then that's being special. But I think that was their mission, and they did it very instinctually. They were very young. So I marvel at them. My parents are my heroes, and you speak of greatest gifts. I believe my parents, were an incredible gift in my life.
Do you think on some level they knew that anything you did, not make it to the major leagues, because as an 8-year-old, I don't think they're thinking you're going to make it to the major leagues. But do you think that they saw that you could be that inspiration to other people, or to other people who are having a hard time? Was that part of it? Was this idea that you have an empathy because of a challenge that you particularly have?
I'm not sure. I think it was such a struggle for our family early on,
Just to figure it out?
We were just trying to figure it out. We were just, they were trying to figure out, they gave up a lot. My dad had to go to work immediately. My brother and I were young, and they had to figure out a direction. My mom went back to law school when I was in middle school, and I remember her staying up through the night, and they did a lot of things, I think, that are very inspirational, but I don't think they did it to inspire other people.
Right.
We were just trying to
make ends meet.
Yeah. And for baseball, for me, I just wanted to make the Little League team, and then after that, I wanted to make the junior high school team, and then the varsity team seemed so far off, and then there was a really great Connie Mack team in Flint that I wanted to play for, and they had the coolest uniforms and the coolest jackets, and I wanted to, and I was asked to play on that team, and so it always seemed very incremental,
right?
The motivation and the ladder, so to speak. It wasn't until I really kind of got to college that these magazines and different articles started going around, that you started to get a sense that people were attaching themselves to this.
So Jim, when do you think, as a young person, because there's other people that are going to be watching this that have their own issues that they're dealing with. For you, when do you think you overcame whatever the disability you had, that I can do this, whatever it is? I got this thing called life. Was there a moment, or was it just, like you said, incremental? Was it a subtle thing that happened over time? Because people can go the other way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. And there are two ways to go in life for everything. But because you had this issue you had to overcome, it'd be easier for somebody to just throw in the towel and say, I can't do this. Was it your parents' love and support, which it sounds like it was, that helped you? But you had to internally embrace it at some point in time.
Oh boy, that's a very, very good question. You spoke of greatest gifts, and there's a quote that I love too, from an author that I love, Cormac McCarthy. In his book, All the Pretty Horses, said, those who have endured some misfortune will always be set apart. But that misfortune is their gift and their strength.
Yes.
And I don't know that I came to that realization until much later in life. In a lot of ways, being born differently seemed like a little bit of a burden to me, and not so much as a gift when I was a kid.
Sure.
In maybe unconscious ways. I was battling, I was fighting, I was ambitious in ways that I maybe wasn't always proud of. It wasn't until later that I started to become more comfortable in my skin and more able to understand that those things in and of themselves are gifts. So the journey of being born differently and finding, moving past the temptation to hide my hand in my pocket in social situations. Sure. Being around my kids and my kids' friends and what did they think, and being able to embrace it. I honestly, I don't know that I could have. There were times in my life when I'm very surprised I would ever come to that comfort. And I'm thankful for that. And it took, a lot of thinking and introspection, and it took success and it took failure for me to find that.
And belief that there's much more inside than what physical thing that you were dealing with, right? And belief in yourself, belief in Jim. You probably got a lot of, from your the kids. Kids can be ruthless, right, when you're growing up. And there are, again, just to state, there are probably many, many people in society that are the victims of of others their age and children that are poking fun at them for whatever reason. You had to have some internal strength and belief at some, to get you through that.
I think there's a lot of gratitude, to be honest. I had such wonderful people around me. I really did. And I had great parents, and I had great coaches. I had mentors. I had friends. I had teachers. And I could tell you story after story after story of times when I felt what you're describing on a playground. And there was someone who came to my defense. There was someone who was there who pulled me onto a team and said, you're going to play quarterback. And I said, well, I never played quarterback before. They said, well, you're going to back up and be on the varsity team. And all of a sudden I was on the varsity team playing quarterback and trying to figure out how to get the snap and the handoff to the left and all those different things.
Right.
So over and over again, I was surrounded by those kinds of people who weren't going to take no for an answer, who believed that there was a solution. The inner strength that I had came from all those interactions. It came from all that generosity that we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way to do this. And I'm a little bit stubborn in that way. I still on a golf course think I can, all right, I'll find a way to get out of this sand trap, or there's a way to hold the club or putt or whatever it is. And so I really benefited from people who were creative and believed that there was an answer, that there's, let's just dig deeper into this. And so, I was lucky to have that.
Would that be your advice to people? Like when you met these other kids at the ballpark, whatever? I mean, what did you say to them? What kind of insight did you give them, encouragement or whatever?
Yeah. I start with creativity. You need a certain attributes, to fight your way out of something. And I believe it's the foundation of it is creativity and open-mindedness. I get a lot of letters from kids, how did you switch the glove on and off?
Right.
And, from throwing and catching with my left hand.
Right.
I do it in my own specific way, and I still to this
There was
day,
no manual for that.
No, there was no manual for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lousy
You just
message
kinda
to
figure it
send.
out.
Like, I don't know how you can do it.
Right.
Right? I mean, you can try what I do.
Right.
And I've met kids who do it exactly the same way, and I've met kids who do it differently and do it faster than I did.
Right.
But
Creativity is the answer.
But hold the bat the way you feel like it's important to
Right.
hold the
Try
bat.
different things.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can do it differently and still do it just as well, right? And that's the message. You don't have to do it cookie cutter. You don't have to do it the way everybody else does it, but you can still get to where you want to go with a different solution.
This applies to everybody, by the way.
Yeah,
This is just not
100%.
somebody that has any kind of
Any
disability.
issue.
It
Right,
applies to
right,
everybody.
right. We
You've
all
got
have
to be who
challenges.
you are, yourself, figure it out for yourself. You can take all this information from the sky or from other mentors, other people that tell you, oh, do it this way. But ultimately, we all have to do it our own way. Yes. That's right for us.
Yes, and that's what's beautiful. That's what's beautiful about baseball, I believe, is that there's just so many different ways about finding success, so many different body types, so many different attributes that you can bring to a team. It could be speed, could be power, could be, a breaking pitch, could be your enthusiasm that you bring to a locker room. All those 25 different components that make up a major league locker room. Everybody's bringing a different background, different languages, different music. But when it comes together, it really becomes something beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Back to Paul's question of people who are struggling, what kind of advice you'd get them to go through it. And you said something about baseball, which I think is very telling, about the incremental approach. What making the one little league team, then a Connie Mack team, a high school team, a college team, and to the major leagues. I think a lot of people, when they're in a dark moment, they feel overwhelmed by it. And they're looking to the end instead of just that one little thing that they can do today that will kind of get them going in the right path to kind of get them out of whatever challenge that they happen to be facing. Is that kind of, again, back to what you were saying?
Same thing like getting out of a slump, too.
Right.
Sort of take small steps, get back to basics.
Yep. It can be just dressing nicer that day. Getting up and making your bed and doing it well and putting on nice clothes and eating well. and all those things start to build up to a better feeling as you go to the ballpark and setting your sights on those kinds of goals, those physical goals, those whatever it is you need to work on to, pitch your way out of something. Yeah, dressing nice isn't going to help you pitch better, but it is going to help you feel better and move closer to where you want to go and feel good about things. So, it's very, very small, very, very incremental. And it can be overwhelming. I mean, when I lost 18 games when you're in the major leagues, and I didn't get to 18 all at once. I lost one at a time, and another one, and until all of a sudden, I didn't know what to do. I was trying to win 3 or 4 ball games. I couldn't make the pain go away.
Right.
It wasn't going away with any immediate work that I was doing. It was a steady slog. It was hard, and it overwhelmed me. I'll be honest. It overwhelmed me and it overtook me.
Yeah.
But you were able to move through it.
Ultimately, I got through it. Yeah, and I had to really ask myself, what's important? Because I was playing with the Angels, my home. I lived here. My wife's family's from here. A lot of my friends and our social situations were here. And yet I had this very public failure, this very public losing streak. And I felt like every restaurant I walked into, people were saying, oh, there's, 2-12, or, I didn't have a name anymore. It was my record. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And the gift in your moment of pain was, that's not me. Winning is not me and losing's not me. That's ultimately what you kind of get to. And it took very public failure for me to really get that lesson through my head.
That's the greatest lesson we can all have. Yeah. Is that lesson and that's why athletes that put it on the line every time they go out there, or actors or musicians or, public speakers or whoever it might be, then when you're in front of an audience, you're putting it out, you're risking everything. Most people don't do that. Most people don't have the courage to do that. No, they don't. And those that do, like you, Jim, and are able to move through those challenging moments, become better, become a better human being, you become more evolved, you see life differently, change your perspective. You agree?
You hope so. I mean, you hope so. You can go the other way, like you mentioned. Adversity, great success, can push us down different paths too. We can choose different things.
Sure.
So
ultimately it's our choice though.
Ultimately it's your choice of what you take away from the experience.
But you're, one of the things you speak in front of groups all the time now to uplift them because of what you experienced. Tell us briefly about that and how you evolved into that.
It's a great question. Evolve is a good word for it because I certainly didn't jump up on stage and love it. But if you forgive my saying it, I came to appreciate my story. You know what I mean? And I was able to separate from it a little bit. And I retired earlier than I wanted to retire from baseball. I was in my early 30s. I envisioned...
You retired and you came back, right?
I did make a comeback, but I was still young. I was still, I started at 21. I was done basically by 31. And it was a painful end. It wasn't, a ceremony and parade. It was, here's your ticket home and that's it.
I've heard that story before. So.
Yeah, right. And the game goes on. You think it's going to stop, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
And so I shrunk up a little bit. I had wonderful blessings, great wife, great daughters, and yet I couldn't see it. I was struggling, watching TV, watching the games, seeing my friends, seeing the places I loved. But speaking, after a while, some people encouraged me you should share your story. And I started to do it, and I had this little voice on my shoulder that was like, nobody wants to hear this, be quiet, what are you talking about, get off this stage, my mouth would dry up, I got nervous, but but I don't know, I just kind of stuck with it. And I tried very hard not to be a speaker. Like I tried very hard not to read the speaker book. I just tried to tell a story.
Right.
And man, I went to Iowa and I went to, Ohio and Florida and Seattle and all these places so far away from my home and so far away from where I played, and people listened. People recognized it and related to it. And so it allowed me to make sense of my career. It allowed me to make sense of just sort of, and that's what led to my book. Ultimately was the speaking. Usually it's the opposite, but I said, hey man, I got to be honest here. I had some great moments, really great things happened, but I also had some really lousy things that happened. And what can I learn from this? And then when you travel and you speak to people, you find out that everybody has those exact same experiences.
Right.
And I know you've gone through that, Paul.
Yes.
And it's I get as much out of it now as I feel like whatever it is that I speak about in whatever audience. It's really a traveling energy that goes back and forth between the story, you, and the audience. And I'm really thankful for that part of my life.
Well, keep doing it. You do a great job with it.
Well, thank
You're
you.
impacting people,
Yeah,
and that's what it's all
That's
about.
what it's all about.
Thank you.
And bringing that back full circle to the greatest gift, and our last question. Do you think that being born with your disability was ultimately your greatest gift that was given to you?
Yes, I do. And I tell a story when I speak about my daughter asking me at one point in her young life if I liked my little hand. She asked me that exact question, in a very simple, childlike way.
Right.
And I've never stopped thinking about that, since she asked it. For whether I liked my little hand, do I like it? And ultimately, it is who I am. It's what's different about me and whatever experiences I've had. I hope that it's added a little empathy, as you spoke of. But I know for sure I wouldn't have gone to the places that I went to without it, for better or worse. And I'm thankful for the fight that it's brought, and yes, I do think it has been the defining aspect of who I am as a person.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean,
Yeah.
if you enjoy it,
Yeah.
please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
Forgot about that.
Forgot that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.